So welcome to class. I don't remember if we looked at this at the beginning of LAN or not, but whatever, bleeping computer. If you got a Netgear router, hackers can take it over. Need to patch it. Apple's also got some issues on Mac OS.
Anybody can send you a text message and take over your device.
They may have that fixed, but they also may have had it fixed in 3.6 and 3.7 and 14 and 14.1 and 14.6 and 14.7, 14. It may be fixed now, maybe. They keep trying to patch it. So yeah. There's also a big VMware patch. We patched our servers here on campus already. This came out yesterday. They've already got them patched. So I'm training them good. For a while there, they weren't watching this every day, and I was bored and looking at this before class and copying and pasting links. So I'm like, hey, we got this. Y'all might want to secure it down. Now they, I think, have some type of policy probably to watch this page quite often, some others. So here with security, we talked about Active Directory and stuff on Monday. And now we come down here to the Linux section, Linux user accounts, Linux commands. So in operating systems, you played with local users and groups on Linux. That's past WD and stuff like that. We didn't really do much else with Linux. You can connect a Linux to a Windows domain, kind of like Windows 10. You use your student account to log into it. You could actually have a Windows machine or a Linux machine there and log in with your student account if it was connected to the domain. Unix has an NIS system, which kind of operates like a Windows domain. And there's a centralized server or two that has all of the user accounts and passwords stored on them instead of the local machine. Storing the passwords and user accounts remotely is on a single spot is maybe safer than having credentials on all the machines that somebody could hack and then possibly get a local exploit and dump the password hashes out of it and then run it through a crack tool and break your password. A little bit harder to get broken into a centralized server somewhere that's locked away that you don't have physical access to. And yes, you played with, probably paid attention to past WD and the group file. The shadow file in Linux is where the encrypted passwords are stored. You had to put it in a separate file. Old school Unix systems kept the password in the password file and the username and all the information, but they couldn't keep it secure, keeping the username and password all in the same file. So they had to move the password to a separate file. Called it shadow. It's hiding in the shadow. That's really hard to get into. And let's look at some other stuff with Linux that I didn't see and test out. And that's Pam. She's not the nice lady that bakes cookies for you for Thanksgiving and stuff. Pam, Pluggable Authentication module. So Pam is a framework for logging into Unix Linux systems. And Pluggable, guess what that means? You can plug stuff into it. Think of your wall outlet. You can plug a TV in, you can plug a razor in, you can plug a lamp in, a computer, they all do different stuff, right? We did show and tell on Monday, and I showed off a biometrics thumbprint. If you wanted that to work in Linux, you would have to install the module that interacted with PAM to for authentication. There's some configuration files and stuff for PAM2 to tell the system, do you display a username login prompt, or you load up the biometric thumbprint login and stuff. So there is some coding into that. When you're in operating systems, if you try to change a password, you may have had some complaints that your password was a dictionary word. Especially if you tried pass 1 2 3 4 or something like that, it probably said, hey, this isn't a good password. That's the PAM password quality. It's kind of built in over there. So each component, Kerberos down here at the bottom, they've got pointed out. Kerberos would interact with the Unix Kerberos realm or a Microsoft Windows Kerberos. And just pointing that out, because I didn't see this spelled out and test out, but yes, this is in Unix, Linux systems. I bet you have a Unix or Linux system in your pocket. Do you have an Android phone? Do you have an Apple phone? Who has an Apple phone? 3 people? This is a reverse of the first class. I guess that's why the first class is so much better than this one.
We're always ahead.
They all have, everybody except for one had an Android. So in any case, they're all Unix, Linux based. Android is Linux, kernel based and stuff. So I bet they probably have the PAM and they set up either the PIN code or the face real recognition or the touch ID. They may call it thumbprint on Android, but it's touch ID. And then on Apple, you've got your thumbprint ID, touch ID anyway. For some of the versions, I think they dropped it somewhere around 8. I think 8 plus is the last one that may have had the touch ID. They still have in some of the tablets and stuff out there, but and they're looking at maybe implementing it again in the future. Maybe iPhone 14 will probably have it back, but so that's a pluggable module. Face recognition is a pluggable module. The touch ID, I think they had like a 1 in 50,000 chance of it falsely letting somebody in. And facial recognition on a phone, iPhone, was 1 in a million, I believe, was the failure rate on it. So dramatically better than touch. I was thinking, why? Can't you just hold a picture up and trick the touch thing? And researched a little bit more because I'd heard about that as an exploit, but that was on Android. Some of your Android phone implementations just have a camera sensor in them, and they only use camera, and a picture will fool them. So they're super easy to Face ID fake some of them. But the iPhone and yes, some Androids now implement the infrared. They shoot 30,000 infrared lasers at you, dots. And then it reads each dot, how long it takes to get back, and it builds a 3D model of your face. It does not use the camera. That's why it's 1 in a million. It's what rated the more secure.
Very cool.
And it's also the reason why that they didn't push real hard to keep Touch ID on an iPhone after 8, because their facial recognition was a lot more secure. It's all login stuff. They're not going to have that in test out. Thought it was something to discuss today, since it is talking about Linux user accounts and group accounts and stuff, because, well, yes, your phone is Unix Linux device. These things exist. Here's a bunch of modules that you might find in a standard distribution install. Of course, the APC thumbprint biometrics, you'd need to see if they had a PAM module for it to work with your Linux distro, or if there was an open source that they used to hack and let it work. Hack being improve the system, not breaking something.
Right.
Other things with the Linux And we've got the login defaults. You can specify like what user ID that they're starting with, and some start with 500, some start at 1,000. It's just preference or whatever. Other, what type of encryption is used with when you create a password? That can be changed in the login definitions file, which might be important if people are changing their passwords. How's it being encrypted on the system? Are they using 2FISH or Blowfish or AES or RC4, or what are they using? And why is that important? Let's know that exists. Well, as time marches on, they find flaws and sometimes older encryption, and if they can find a big enough flaw to reverse encrypt your password that's being used, then it might be time to change what it's actually being encrypted as. I believe the next chapter goes into encryption. One of the next two chapters we get into cryptography a little bit. And the password expiration values, defaults and stuff in there. The skeleton directory is in Linux. I think y'all played with that a little bit. I believe I had one of the labs videos I showed where you could put a file in there, create a user, and go look in the home folder, and the file was there. I remember it. I don't know if y'all remember it, but I do. Really, some of the more important stuff for the skeleton directory is the bash RC file, the bash logout, bash profile. They can control user settings. They also have an example of a corn shell in there, KSHRC. So you may not be using bash, you may be using a different type of shell. Corn. Did you know that the band Korn actually had developed the Linux login shell? Okay, no, that's not true. Just because they're spelled the same, not true. They're completely different things. One's cool, you can log into a command line and do stuff. The other one's just a band, it's nobody's ever heard of before. Y'all know corn, that's good. That's good. I'm waiting to the year that the student has never heard of the band Korn. I'm like, oh, ow. I know it is. Yep. Terrible, terrible stuff.
I hate that he's not wrong.
Linux group. So I'm going to talk about some stuff. I told you the user accounts uses a ID instead of the actual username. So when you're logging in as John Doe and you create a file, that file is set with the ID, not John Doe. It's like you go to google.com, the router doesn't see google.com. You translate that to an IP address and send the packet that way. So let me show you. Yeah, we're going to be a lot faster than the first class, I think. Although Wade is here and he really screwed up land class. So I don't know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in. I'm going to log in as Jane Doe. I'm going to create a file on server 3. That doesn't seem right.
Another bell. That's over.
Good talk, guys.
I knew that it would be Wade's fault. Please lock the computer, then unlock it using your smart card. What? I don't have a smart card. Stupid computer. Fine, lock. Let's unlock this thing. Does Jane Doe even exist? I don't think Jane Doe exists anymore. I deleted that. Joe Blow. That's what happened. Jane Doe no longer exists. This is now Joe Blow. I forgot. I renamed the user. I need to remember that.
Do we need to do that?
No. Now, I'll show you that in just a little bit. Wait. Calm down. This is going to be recorded too. Yes.
It's not you. You have two?
Yeah, we got two not here. I was requested for it to be recorded. So Joseph, or y'all call him Joey? Joey? Yeah, he has Sudden Link, and well, it's not working. So I was like, I understand. You can go take care of that. They're gonna. Okay, so here we go. Access server 3. I'm going to create a file under public here. What do you mean it's not accessible?
This is great. It's a great day out.
I do have access. Let me check public. What's going on? Oh, the main minions. No wonder I don't have access. Like I said, the first class is just so much better than y'all. There's not any problem happened in the first class. It has to work this time. It did. See, told you. So I'm going to create a file. Joe Blow. Files created, right? Let me look at the properties of Joe Blow. Okay, so what do we see? Joe Blow owns the file, right? And he has full control of the file right there, correct? Yep, he made it. Okay, let's look at a few things about Joe Blow. So Joe Blow has a big long number right here called a SID, the security identifier. That is the number that is used to identify Joe Blow. Yeah. If I go look at the file on server 3, I need to go to E drive, right? Shares, public, calcs, Joe Blow file /H. No, what do I have to do? S. Okay. Try that, S. There we go. So this is the access control list on the file joeblow.txt. And what are we looking for? Do you see? You see a security ID? You don't see his name, right? You see a security ID, except for the name of the file itself. So the security ID is what's actually on the file access control list. So I used a calculate ACL or configure ACL. Yeah, configure ACL command, CACLS, to view the ACLs. I told it to view it with actual security IDs, the raw format. Without viewing the S, it by default translates things, showing us that domain minions and Joe Blow has full control. Domain minions has some special access and all of those rights in the list. Also, the operating system itself has full control and the administrators have full control, F up there. But the main part was showing the security ID. If I delete Joe Blow off the system, and here's what took a while last time. I'm going to have to reboot server 3. Just because server 3 has the information pre-cached. So if I continue looking at, I'll try to look at it, it's going to still show me crash credentials coming from server 3. Where's Joe Blow? Yeah, it's still showing his name, but he's deleted off the system. So this is just, we've done it so fast, it doesn't have time to sync everything. So speed things along. I'm going to restart server 3. Just so all of its information about who's who and who is where is gone out of its system. Okay. I'll look at the file again. It should not be there. And make sure it's just not credentially saved. I've also, may have still had it open. Had to sign out of client 1, 2. One more try. Let's restart server 3 again. I've signed out of client 1. It might work this time. It did. What do we see?
The answers ID. Yes, ID.
How do you know that a user account that created that file has been deleted, or that had permission to that file at some point in time has been deleted?
See the ID. Well, question the icon.
Yep, icon's different, and well, the big long number. If I recreate Joe Blow, will he have access to that file? I can spell. So he's recreated. Let's check out, what's his ID now? It is incremented by 1. It's no longer 10 at the end, it's 11 at the end. He's a different person. So it doesn't matter how many times it reboots or whatever. If I go back and look at this file, he's not going to show up as having access because it's not looking at his name. It translates to the, those are still different. Linux is a little bit easier. You could edit the past WD file and recreate somebody, and when it creates the file at like 1111, you could just simply change the digit to 0 and save the file, and whoop, all of a sudden he's got rights to everything. Microsoft doesn't let you do that. There's not a quick way I found to be able to edit the SID of an individual user that's generated, and there's some security there. Microsoft said you shouldn't be able to do it anyway. I'm not delved deep enough to try yet to change Joe's Blow to the deleted user account and get it back. Sounds like a challenge for somebody. Yes, don't accidentally delete somebody's account. It doesn't come back. Hopefully you would have implemented the recycle bin in Active Directory. I showed you all that in LAN 1. We'll do that again in LAN 2, but you implement the recycle bin and you could go restore from the recycle bin in the administrative center. Okay. How do I handle the firing of an employee because they're bad? So like if I was fired because I hacked the Pentagon and they needed to replace me, the instructor to come in to replace me would probably need access to like the syllabi and all the curriculum and stuff. So they probably don't want to just delete my account. How would you handle that? So Joe Blow, he blew his job off and it's like, man, got fired. Had some good, cool files and stuff. Somebody's going to take his position. So the user gets fired. Your best practice is probably just disable the account. Leave it disabled until the replacement comes. So we've not destroyed the SID. But the replacement's not Joe Blow. It's Sue Smith. Okay.
Taking over his job, he could just change all the information.
You can rename Sue Smith. It says, hey, you probably want to rename some more than just the display name. Sue Smith, Sue.Smith. New username. New attributes. Fit all the new person's name. New password. Now you're ready to enable the account. same security ID. All the files that Joe Blow created will now show up as Sue Smith in the name field because it will translate to that. Even logging into the Windows machine, of course, I've already deleted and recreated Joe Blow, so I've blew away that profile because he was 1110 at the end. But Sue Smith could log into the client machine that person was using and access their desktop files and stuff. It may create a new folder because it recognizes a new name, but they can still browse C drive, go to users, go into Joe Blow's folder, and they'll have ownership of all of those because the security ID is going to match and the ownership is going to match because it all goes back to that security ID. Common position here on campus that gets rotated, administrative assistants, secretaries. They're called administrative assistant. It sounds like a bigger high paid job, but no, they're not high paid. That's why they have high turnover. So that position's one that's really useful to disable account when the new one is vetted and hired in. Just rename, give them the info. That way they can still access the secretary PC. And then they still have access to all the files that the other secretary had just hidden in the documents folder on the desktop instead of putting it in OneDrive or putting it up onto the server. Because that's normally what happens. There's always some important stuff shoved in places it shouldn't be. So disable, rename the account, reset the password, re-enable the account, let the new position take control. It's pretty neat. Sometimes on email systems, you create an alias. A new person takes a role, then that person is given an alias. So he's got two email addresses, the old person's email address and then his new position. That way, if people are still emailing the old address, it'll still fall into the new position's mailbox and they can take care of customers. And then when you get weird emails come in, go, hey, I'm new here. I'm your new representative. The other person has left the company. Don't say because he murdered somebody or, don't say why they left the company. Just they left the company for bigger and better things like the electric chair. And yep. Yeah. I hope that was informative presentation. I'm going to pause recording.